Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for our webinar, Buying a Home during COVID. We certainly know that many people have been affected by COVID and the virus, and our hearts go out to anybody that has been affected by the virus, either personally or financially or both. And we know that many of you may not be thinking that right now is a time to buy a home, and we in fact might agree with you. If you're in a hard spot, this might not be the time to buy a home or sell a home. But for many of you, it's a great time. So we just wanted to go over what it looks like to buy a house in general, and then what does it look like to buy a house now that we have certain protocols due to COVID. So with that, I'm gonna get my slideshow going here and jump right in. Guys, we at ACE Group are a team of realtors with a mission to empower our friends and family to secure their financial future through real estate. And we hope that that is something that's in your future as well. Something I heard the other day on the Dave Ramsey show is that facts are your friends in an emergency. So with that, I just want to go ahead and introduce people here. Sarah, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Sarah Asay. I'm a managing broker at ACE Group, and this is not my first foray into an interesting market. I got my license in 2007 in Portland, Oregon. And so I've been through several different types of markets. So I encourage questions.
Shannon.
Hi, I'm Shannon Johnston, and I am also a licensed broker on the ACE Group team. I work primarily with buyers and just enjoy helping people through that process of finding the right home for their family and their lives.
Awesome. And my name's Trevor. I'm also a partner with Shannon and Sarah, and my main job here is to make sure that we are marketing correctly, that we're on the cutting edge of technology, and really to make sure that our operation as far as transaction coordination, contract to close, is just very solid across the board. With us today, we have a special guest. Greg, say hello.
Hey guys.
Greg, what do you do?
So Greg Ocken, Movement Mortgage. I give people money to buy houses. So I handle the loan application part.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, here's kind of what we hope to touch on today. Take a look kind of through the topics. If you have any questions, there should be a question Q&A bar, and I will do my best to get to those questions like throughout the process here. And then at the end, we're going to do a wide open Q&A, and I'll just ask all the questions and make sure that we cover everything. Okay, we're going to talk essentially through the process as it would happen chronologically. Usually, some of the things get swapped around a little bit, but we're going to talk about consultation, the loan application process, house hunting, offers, negotiations. What are the buyer's costs to get into a home? Title and escrow and their function, and then inspection, appraisal, kind of the contract to close, so final signing, and then what is closing mean. Ask us anything throughout the process, and we're just going to jump right in. Okay, Sarah, I wanted to ask you, what is a buyer's consultation? I know that a lot of people just start seeing homes right off the bat. What's important about the buyer's consultation?
That's such a good question because I get that a lot. So what's important about a buyer's consultation is rather than just getting in your car, driving around, looking at houses kind of sporadically, you're actually able to sit down with your agent and just be able to go over exactly what you're looking for and find out what's important to you. So, you might say that, you need a garage, but your agent might press a little more. Maybe you actually just need a place to do woodworking. So a shed with a electrical hookup is fine. So there's just different things that your agent can help you with that can just make the process go a lot smoother and so that you're not looking at houses that you have no interest in seeing.
It's safe to say that it saves a lot of time to do that up front, and it saves a lot of frustration with the buyer too. Let me ask you this. Since we are in a COVID social distancing environment, how has the consultation changed for you?
So in many ways, it stayed the same. The difference is that now we do it through Zoom And it's actually a lot more convenient. Most of my buyers have kids. A lot of them have young kids. And now they're able to do it during nap time or while they're feeding their child, or just not having to worry about getting to a certain spot. So we go over all the same information. What is the process of buying a house? What does that look like? What are your must-haves? Things like that. We just do it all through Zoom.
Okay. And you can set up the search and do everything right then and there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Greg, now you and I both know that the next step, or even before the consultation, is to start working on a loan application. Most people need a loan to buy a home. Can you talk briefly about what is the overview of the home loan process, application process look like?
Absolutely. It's actually pretty quick and easy. There's various ways to do it. We can do it over the phone. We could do it over Zoom like this. There's even an online application you could fill out on your own from home. And then I could call you after that. But generally, it's about a dozen plus questions, pretty basic stuff, asking about who you are, where do you work, how much money do you make, what type of down payment money do you have saved up, if any, and then obviously we need to do a credit pull as well. But it really doesn't take long.
Okay. Now, Greg, some people are not familiar with the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval. Can you briefly kind of say what are the main differences there and which one's better?
Sure. The one I just described is a pre-qual, right? It's half hour, and it's all verbal, right? You say you make $100,000 a year. We punch it into a computer. Computer says you should probably be able to qualify, and you get a pre-qual letter. The next level up, would be the full pre-approval, and that's basically where you turn in your documentation, right? If you say you're Fred Flintstone and you make $100,000 a year, I need an ID that says Fred Flintstone. I need some pay stubs that say you make $100,000 a year. We submit all that to the underwriter. They review it. They have very strict guidelines on how they calculate it, and they confirm your eligibility. So, it's always much better to get all your documentation in for the process.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And so Sarah, when we are presenting offers from Fred Flintstone to the seller's agent, right, the listing agent, can you talk a little bit about the importance of the pre-approval versus pre-qualification and why we really push our buyers to get their documentation together?
Yeah, absolutely. So something we'll probably touch on a little bit later, but we're still actually in quite a competitive market. So it's really important to put our best foot forward. So if we're able to come with a pre-approval saying, hey, Fred has already gone through, employment verification. They know that he's employed. They know that he only has one credit card, that kind of thing. He's ready to go buy a house. It's as if, in many ways, you're a cash buyer. Of course, it takes a little bit longer, but as far as the seller is concerned, you're cash. You've been pre-approved. You're ready to go.
Right. Other than the appraisal and maybe a few other things.
Right.
You're a much better looking buyer, and this is what this is all about. We're trying to show how buyers can win in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've done a consultation, we kind of know what we're looking for. We've drilled down. You have some homes. You've at least started the loan application. It doesn't have to be fully there before making an offer, but next would come house hunting. Now, Shannon has a ton of experience showing buyers homes. Let me ask you this. We probably know kind of what touring homes looks like, although I wouldn't trust the reality shows to show you what it really looks like. Shannon, talk about social distancing and COVID, and what are the current protocols that we're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So per the stay-at-home shelter-in-place order, real estate agents are allowed to show homes to clients. However, we are only allowed to enter the home with one client at a time. And we must maintain the 6 feet of social distancing. We wear masks. We bring sanitizer, wipes to wipe down handles, remove shoes or put on shoe covers. So we do all those things to keep our clients safe, and as well as the sellers that may be living in the home. If you are a couple and you need 2 people to look at the home, then one person would stay, in the car out of the home, and we would swap and take turns so that I could enter the home with each client during that showing. And there's a lot that we can do virtually as well. So if for some reason you are not able to go see the home, or that feels like it might compromise your immune system, we can do FaceTime tours and different ways to see the home where you don't even have to be present there.
That's right. And we've really leveraged technology to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, okay, so after you're out house hunting, sooner or later we're going to find something that works. And Sarah, we're going to be placing offers on homes. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the market here. We've been in a very hot seller's market for quite a while. And I've talked with a lot of people that kind of make this assumption, and I think it has to do with kind of the last global catastrophe meltdown being centered around real estate. A lot of people have told me that they're kind of thinking or assuming that it's just going to automatically flip into a buyer's market where good deals are everywhere. Now, I think some may be, and I've seen some good deals, but can you speak a little bit about like what have you seen right now with COVID and the market?
Yeah, so obviously we don't know what will happen. Like we can only predict as far as we can understand and see. However, we have seen that even when the shelter in place was not allowing us to see homes, they weren't allowing realtors to show houses, I still, on my listings, had multiple offers coming in. And I was still writing up offers for my clients based on virtual tours. So there may be a few sellers. There's a few sellers that have not put homes on the market, but there's still a lot of active buyers. I keep telling my clients, it kind of reminds me of Christmas time in that, not that it feels like Christmas right now, but that the people that are serious and need to buy, they're actually out looking to buy. The people that need or really want to sell for whatever reason, they're out there. So we don't have a lot of people that are just like, oh, I just want to go look at houses. It'll be a fun weekend activity, or I might list my house and I'll just see what it sells for. And people are like, no, I want to get my house sold. I want to buy a house. So, but it's still been pretty competitive for buyers right now.
It is, and that's anecdotal, but I would also say that moving into this crisis, we had pretty low inventory levels. Mm-hmm. By that, I mean there was just less homes on the market than there were buyers that needed to buy them. Yeah. Also going in, the banks and the lenders had much stronger balance sheets. The economy was at record low unemployment. I can't predict what's going to happen any better than anyone else, but this has really been a health crisis centered around health and economic complete shutdown, not a housing crisis. Mm-hmm. So that's what our clients know that as far as all the indicators are concerned, we still seem to be in a seller's market.
Yeah, and I will add, I was just going to add that having worked through the recession and selling homes during that time, it's night and day different. We're just not seeing the same types of things where people are just going immediately into a short sale situation, foreclosures. That's not happening. There's still a lot of buyers out there ready to buy houses.
Right. So Sarah, with that in mind, I'm trying to add value to the potential buyers on the call now. What are some of the things that you've done in the past and continue to do to help buyers get the home that they want in a competitive market?
Yeah, so obviously writing a good strong offer, but that's more than just dollar amount, which is nice to hear as a buyer. It's not just whoever has the most money. You can do things like a short inspection period or waiving inspection. We advise our clients get an inspection, but if you say, hey, we're just going to come in within the next 3 days, we'll be in and out, just see what's wrong with the house. If you're able to have a quicker close, or if you're able to accommodate the seller, sometimes it's really important to understand what's important to the seller. Sometimes the seller needs 2 weeks after close to live at the house for their next home. As a buyer, are able to say, sure, you can do that. You can stay there for 2 weeks, and we write up appropriate paperwork that can get your offer accepted. So there's a lot of cool different ways that don't just have to do with dollar amount.
That's awesome. And so I'm going to pull Greg in just a minute, but regarding what you just talked about, those are what we call terms of the contract, right?
Right.
So how do you make sure that your buyers understand everything that you just talked about? When you're writing up a contract and you've discussed kind of what they're willing to do, and now you have a contract that you're writing, how do you discuss that contract with your buyer now that we can't be in the same room with them?
Yeah, great question. So in the past, we usually go get a cup of coffee and have the contract on a table in front of us and just go over it. However, now we go over it through a Zoom call, just like this. Hey, here's what your offer amount is, here's what the closing date will be, and just kind of go through it bit by bit. I also do a Loom video if once we were done with the contract, send it over to them so that they can watch that and let me know if they have more questions. So it's been great because my clients are able to watch the video at their own convenience and then come back and say like, oh, hey, I had a question, what does that mean? And then we can have that phone conversation as well. So it's just been very easy to transition into the Zoom and Loom world.
Okay, awesome.
We were already doing for our out-of-state clients anyways. So
right, technology that we've already had in place and deployed.
Yeah.
So now we're just using it for everybody.
Yeah.
Let's talk a minute about buyer's cost. Real quick, Sarah, what do you normally recommend for earnest money?
So I normally recommend 1% of the purchase price. So if you're looking at a house, obviously $400,000, that you have $4,000 in earnest money set aside. I recommend if you don't have that, then a minimum of at least $1,500.
Okay. Greg, talk to me for a second about some of the buyer's costs. What are the biggest concerns that buyers have? Well, we know that one of the biggest concerns that they have is what comes out of pocket for them. Like how much cash do they have to have? And where is that going to be likely going?
Right. Great question. And that is the number one question I get is how much is this going to cost me? And the second number one question is what's my monthly payment? So to answer your first question, yeah, I always say someone's going to ask for money from you 3 times during the process, and the earnest money is the first time. And that needs to be liquid, available money in your checking account, not like a credit card that you're going to be swiping. The next 2 times someone asks for your money are going to be inspection and appraisal. That technically could be a credit card, but if you're saving at least $1,500 or more for the earnest money, I would suggest you budget the same amount for both inspection and appraisal. They're not that each. I'd say combined inspection and appraisal is another $1,500. So if you can save up $3,000 to spend through the process, that might be enough to get you to the end. Now, there's other things I'm sure we'll talk about, including the down payment and the overall closing costs, but you still need at least a few grand to get to the finish line.
Yeah. Okay. And that was going to be my other question about down payment. And I know that there are 0 down programs that you teach, 6-hour classes on how to get through that. So that's definitely an option. But generally, what do you see most of the time as far as clients putting money down?
Yeah, so I always like to start this question with debunking the common myth that you need 20% down. So if there's anyone out there that's heard that, that's really not the case. Very few clients do that much down. Most loan programs need anywhere from 0 to 5% down. And there's various ways to get that. If you don't have it in savings, I know my wife and I borrowed against my 401k, tax-free and penalty-free, to free up a down payment. You can use gift funds from family even, and that's also tax-free. And there's also down payment assistance programs through the state of Washington, which has a few requirements, including that long class that you mentioned. So there's various ways to fill the down payment gap. And I should, real quick, because I said something about taxes, I'm not a tax accountant. So let me give a little disclaimer there. Certainly talk to your tax advisor, but that is pretty common knowledge that those are tax-free.
Okay, perfect. So now we have a contract. We're going through an inspection process, and it's important to note, usually we don't get the appraisal at the same time. We wait until we're through the inspection period, so you're not getting hit with those costs all at once. And we can, if something falls through at inspection, we can make sure that you're not paying for appraisal. But Shannon, let's talk about home inspections. What are the common things that you've found inspectors find that might be of concern to your buyers during a home inspection?
Yeah, so when the inspectors come, they're looking for structural safety things that we're not able to see an initial walkthrough. So they're going up into the crawl space, the attic. Things they might find are maybe there's a leak in the hot water tank you didn't know about, or there might be evidence of moisture in the attic you didn't know. So those are things that come up that are important for you to know as a buyer before you purchase the home, which is why we advise an inspector to go through and give you that information before you move forward.
Perfect. Sarah, now without getting into detail, how are buyers covered during their purchase and sale contract for inspection? Because I think a lot of buyers are concerned that, oh, I'm writing a contract on a house, I now have to buy it. What is the contract that we write leave provision for as far as inspections and due diligence?
Yeah, so unless someone has completely waived inspection, which is pretty rare, we include the inspection period. And during that time, the buyer can walk away from the transaction for any subjective reason. So sometimes, actually, I get a lot of questions like, well, what if it doesn't pass inspection? There's no pass or fail. The inspection is purely how you as a buyer feel about the property and how comfortable you are moving forward. So if you have the inspection and there's an issue that comes up and you just don't feel good about it, you don't even want to try to renegotiate with the seller, you can walk away. You're not stuck. You're not married to the house. You're still in the dating phase at this point.
Right. And so part of our job is coordinating the transaction and writing these contracts is to make sure that you have you as the buyer have a due diligence time to make sure that everything's the way that it's supposed to be.
Right.
Okay. So Greg, we've got through the inspection period. We've negotiated repairs. It's in the contract now. We're going to order the appraisal. You're going to order the appraisal. Can you basically explain what an appraisal is? Because I hear the word appraiser, and I don't know what that is if I'm not in the industry.
Sure. So an appraiser is someone who walks through the property, just snaps a few photos. It's not nearly as thorough as an inspector, right? They're not crawling under or over the house. They're just snapping a few photos. I always say as quick as a tourist would, right? They're spending most of their time back at the office comparing the home you're buying versus comparable sales. So there's a home down the street, a home 2 streets over, and they're trying to determine that it's worth at least what you paid for. Because at the end of the day, it's the bank's collateral. The bank's giving you $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, whatever it is. They just need to make sure the house is worth that, right? The bank's not going to give you more than what the house is worth. So, there's really no action needed on the buyer's part. We just order it, wait for it to happen, and when it comes back, we all get to see what that value is.
Okay. So that brings me to my next question, Sarah.
We often get questions about low appraisals.
Can you talk about the contract that we write for the buyer? How does it protect the earnest money in the event of a low appraisal? What are the buyer's options, and how likely is it that you see a low appraisal?
So right now we're not really seeing many low appraisals. And what that means is, so say you're paying $300,000 for your house. After the appraiser comes back, they say, actually, we think it's only worth $290,000. We can either choose to back away from it. The seller can order another appraisal at their own expense and see if they can get it up to $300,000. There's a couple different things that we do, and there's forms related to that, and I would walk you through that. We're honestly not seeing that many low appraisals. I think I had 2 last year. And we were able to negotiate. One of them was literally $5,000 off. So my buyer paid $2,500 more and the seller dropped the price to $2,500. So it was just kind of we can work things out.
Perfect. So the next thing this kind of brings us to is, okay, we've sort of got through all the inspections. The buyer wants to go through with this. This is the house of their dreams. They need home insurance. Greg, briefly describe how you work with the insurance agent to make sure the home is insured for both ways.
Yeah, so we instruct the buyer to go shop. You're free to use anybody you want. You got a brother, a cousin, a friend, you like USAA, whatever it is. We just have to have proof that you have coverage. And that payment for that annual premium is built into your mortgage payment. So it's not like a car payment where they're going to pull it out of your checking account every month. It's wrapped into your mortgage payment along with the property taxes. So that's kind of a common question. Do I have to pay the property taxes? Do I have to pay the homeowner's insurance? No, that's all built into the mortgage. The only thing the buyer has to do is go tell me who they're using for their insurance.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we've got home insurance. Everything's looking really good. Built into our contract is something called a final walkthrough phase. So we have a certain amount of days before they close up the contract for the agent and the buyer to walk through the home. Shannon, let me ask you, what are you looking for when you walk a buyer through the home, kind of for the final walkthrough before?
Yeah, so when we go through a final walkthrough, what we're looking for is to make sure the home is in the same condition it was when we first went under contract, after we first saw the home, as well as if there were items that need to be repaired per the inspection response, that those things were completed.
Perfect. Sarah, in the event that an inspection, maybe it was questionably done or wasn't completed at all, what recourse do the buyers have 2 or 3 days before close?
You're muted.
All right, that's why we do it before close, is to make sure that before, and what I mean by closing is before you've signed your final paperwork that's saying, hey, this is my house, we do it before that. So if you walk through and you would ask for the sink to be fixed and you see, hey, it's not fixed, then what we say is like, okay, well, we're not gonna sign the final paperwork until it's fixed. And guess what? The seller will typically rush to get that done on a speedy timeline because, and honestly, that rarely happens. Usually sellers and buyers just really want to work together towards the same thing. But in the event that does, the buyer can feel confident knowing that the work will be done before the house is officially theirs. Right,
you mentioned the signing. So let's clarify a little bit. The final signing is where the buyer signs with the notary and they go through a lot of documents. And I'm gonna ask Greg in a second what some of those could be. But the important thing to remember here is this is different than your purchase contract. That's already been signed. Now remember, we've already negotiated that. Inspections have been done, appraisals done. We've already gone through and verified the work. So if you're sitting at the signing table, everything should have already been completely figured out. There's no surprises. Greg should have already got the loan documents over, so you will know what your monthly mortgage is, how much is going to principal, how much is going to interest, and those types of things. So when we say signing, this is the final signing with a notary at the closing table. Now, I will touch briefly, we've done a couple refinances and that type of thing. Right now, the notaries are coming and using correct COVID protocols. We see gloves, masks, they are staying 6 feet away, so they're gonna be on the other side of the table. Pens are gonna be sanitized, and so those are just extra precautions that are happening to protect the buyers. The signings generally are gonna happen at your home or some kind of place like that where you can sit down and look face to face and be able to read them over. But there's a big pile of documents that get sent over. Greg, what are some of those documents?
Yeah, in short, I always say there's over 100 pages of documents, right? You start signing with your signature real neat. By the time you get to the bottom, it's kind of sloppy. You're just trying to get through them. But part of that, for example, is a promissory note. So the most common loan is a 30-year fixed rate loan, 1 payment a month. That's 360 payments. So you're promising on the note to the bank, you're going to make 360 payments. Also in those documents are your deed. You guys can talk about that as well. It talks about you are the rightful owner of that house. And then there's various other documents as well. This is the part, like you mentioned, it's in person. Up until this part, I don't know if we talked about this, I just want to touch on it real quick. You're going to be electronically signing most likely a lot of loan estimates, a lot of loan documents, even stuff from the lender at that point, it may be 5-10 pages at a time. But this is where it's the 100-page whole enchilada. Everything is actually in the package.
Awesome. So you've signed. Greg, what does funding mean? Because that's the next step.
Great question. So at the very beginning, we talked about earnest money, right? So you got your money sitting there on hold the whole time. And then the lender is going to send a bunch of loan documents to the same people. You're going to sign all that. And then the lender is going to fund. Fund means we're literally wiring hundreds of thousands of dollars to that escrow company, right? Because that seller has to get paid. The seller doesn't get paid in payments for 30 years, right? The seller gets paid right on the spot. So it's the lender wiring a big chunk of money and telling escrow to disperse it correctly. And then escrow will then pay the seller.
Okay, so after that happens, Sarah, what does recording and closed mean? Because we use these words a lot in the industry, but if I'm outside the industry, I don't know what recording means, and what does closed mean?
So recording is when the deed is sent to the county, there's recording numbers. And so essentially to say now your house is yours. I mean, in in the simplest terms is what it means. And then that means it's closed. You can pick up the keys. It's yours. I did want to add, just because this is one of the other most common questions I get, signing and recording are rarely the same day. It's usually you sign and then a day or two later it records. So just touch base with us if you have questions, because we can usually say, oh yeah, you're still gonna close tomorrow or whatever, but it's not. Sometimes I have clients show up and go like, where's the key? So I just always like to remind people like, oh hey, this is a bit of a process, and it's so hard because you're near the end, but
right.
Yeah, closing is then you get your keys.
Yes, and you as the buyer will know what day that is. It's one of the terms on the contract, and it's one of many dates that we track throughout the process. So
yes.
Closing date will be a big red date on your calendar. Everyone's aware of it, and if it moves, we will definitely know about it.
It's no surprise. It's just
right.
a question.
So one more thing about closing and recording with the county, Sarah. Are you seeing any issues there with delays due to COVID?
I have not seen any issues. I know that for sure in King and Pierce County, they do it all electronically. So everyone's working from home and it's still recorded electronically. So
that's right. And our escrow company that we normally work with can submit those documents electronically, and they all go to the county.
It's been very seamless.
Yeah. So that's awesome, guys. That was a lot of how. Sarah, let me ask you this. What does it mean to you to hand keys to a buyer? Like, what's your favorite part about this process?
My favorite part is handing the keys over. I mean, there's nothing better than unlocking the lockbox and getting to give the key to the client to unlock their door. It can represent, I often get teary-eyed. It can represent just a change in their life. Sometimes it's someone who never thought that they could own a house, or they can't believe that this is their cool move-up house and they're so excited because they're having a baby, or maybe their kids are in college and now they just need a small, it's always just such a cool experience to be able to hand them their keys. And we've gone through this whole process together. I get very close to my clients. I always say no pressure, but we're going to be best friends now because we've been hanging out for the last few months, looking at houses and going through this process. So it's just, I love it.
Now, Greg, it's always an honor to talk to you because you are such a ninja when it comes to your knowledge of random guidelines for an FHA buried down somewhere in a document. And so you do all this work kind of behind the scenes, and sometimes it's just like, thanks, buddy, but you're kind of the unsung hero. What's your favorite part about the process?
My favorite part is when the buyer texts me that they got the keys, because to your point, I'm often in the dark. Our role is to inject a bunch of money into the transaction, right? And there's a lot of hoops and twists and turns along the way sometimes. And so I'm in constant contact with the buyers. And then when we get to the end and we send the money, it gets quiet for a day or two while we're waiting for this recording to happen. And sometimes I'll check in like, hey, did it record? Like, oh yeah, we were in, we love it, blah, blah, blah. So my favorite part is when they text me and say, hey, I just got the keys, I appreciate all your help. And I joke, like Sarah mentioned, she had a joke that she tells everyone. My joke is, can you just air five the lender, right? When you're popping the bottle of champagne with the realtor or whatever it is you're doing with your happy dance, handing off the keys, just give me a little air five. Everyone's
so passionate about getting this done, and it's really what we kind of live and breathe. And nobody more than Shannon. Shannon, I know you've worked with a lot of first-time home buyers. You've worked with people that have moved up and have accomplished their dream. What does that mean to you to be able to do that with your buyers?
Yeah, I having a home it's like a picture of like this future someone's imagining, and they're walking into it. I mean, it's really, they're walking into this future they imagined, and whether it is moving up or the first-time home buyer who's like, I can. Like sometimes it's small things. I hear this a lot. I just want to be able to like paint the walls the color I want to paint them.
Yeah.
So especially from first-time home buyers, and I get that because I was there too. And I remember when I bought my first home, it's like I can do like this is my space. So yeah, it's a great feeling. I love it.
I love it. I love it. To our panelists, thanks so much. If you could hang out for a second, let's see if we have any questions. We have a question here that says, a lot of times instead of fixing a minor repair, they offer like credit. And I think we're talking about the inspection process. Mm-hmm. Sarah or Shannon, what do you guys see with regard to getting a credit or something instead of like getting something actually repaired? Sarah, go ahead.
It can work great sometimes, and that is something that people do. Sometimes the buyer's boyfriend or whatever is really handy and can fix something, and so they would rather have the extra $500 or whatever towards their closing costs, and just have their someone else fix whatever the issue is. So there's just different reasons that sometimes you want it repaired, sometimes you just want to offer money.
Yes. And we also got another question here about when a seller stays past close. Sarah or Shannon, do you guys want to talk about what that would take in the way of paperwork? Shannon, maybe you could speak to this. Have you ever had a buyer that needed to stay after, a seller that needed to stay after closing?
Yeah, so what we do in that case is we write up appropriate contracts, because at that point the now buyer turned owner is the landlord. So we write up contracts, and the negotiation for the price of the rent back would depend on how you write up the contract. So I've had a buyer offer to do it at no charge because they wanted to make their offer stronger, but I've also seen where they're charging the rent for that time period.
Right. And all that's market driven, right? It's about what kind of deal we're getting for the seller, if we're working on the seller's behalf, or it depends on maybe what kind of offer the buyer wrote. And usually we can find some kind of win-win. Sometimes they just need the garage to store some stuff. So guys, that looks like it for our questions. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave you with a quick video on how to get our app. I want to thank all the panelists for coming, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future. So thank you very much.